You're driving down the highway. Music on. Window slightly open. The kind of drive where your mind drifts and your hands just know what to do. And then, out of nowhere, someone cuts in front of you. Your foot hits the brake before your brain even registers what happened. You didn't think. You didn't decide. Your body just acted, and you probably didn't feel grateful. You probably felt annoyed. Maybe your heart was pounding a little. Maybe you muttered something under your breath. But here's the thing nobody thinks about in that moment. The reason you're still alive right now, the reason that near miss was just a near miss and not something far worse, has almost nothing to do with your reflexes. It has everything to do with one man. A man most people have never heard of. A man who looked at the way cars were built and asked one simple, terrifying question. What happens to the human body when this thing fails? Welcome to Simply Curious. This channel exists for one reason: to take the ordinary things you walk past every day and show you the extraordinary, often invisible story living inside them. Today we're going inside the history of car safety. Not the cars, not the crashes, but the man, the mind, and the psychology behind why we were almost never protected at all. If this sounds like your kind of rabbit hole, like this video, share it with someone who loves to learn, and subscribe so you never miss one of these. Now, let's go back to a time when cars had no safety net at all. Here's something quietly unsettling. For most of the 20th century, the car industry operated on one central belief. Accidents are the driver's fault, not the vehicle, not the design, not the metal, the dashboard, the steering column pointed directly at your chest like a spear. The driver. And because of that belief, almost nobody inside the industry was asking how to protect the person sitting inside the car during a crash. What was really happening? This is where it gets psychologically interesting. The car industry in the 1950s and 60s wasn't filled with cruel people. It was filled with normal people doing what normal people do, protecting what already works. There's a concept in psychology called system justification theory. It describes our brain's deep, almost reflexive tendency to defend the existing order of things, even when that order is harmful, because change feels more dangerous than the problem itself. The car was a symbol, a marvel, a promise of freedom and the future. Suggesting the car itself was dangerous felt like an attack on progress. And so the industry did what systems under threat always do. They shifted the blame. They pointed to the driver. They lobbied against regulation. They called safety features unnecessary costs. They argued that adding seatbelts would imply their cars were unsafe, and that implication alone would scare customers. Think about how backwards that is for just a moment. We won't add safety features because admitting we need them makes us look dangerous. And it worked. For decades, it worked. Until 1965, when a 31-year-old lawyer published a book that changed everything. Why it feels so STNG the brain explanation. Ralph Nader's book was called Unsafe at Any Speed. And the title alone did something very specific to the human brain. It didn't say, cars can sometimes be dangerous. It said at any speed, meaning there is no safe version of what you're doing right now. The danger isn't conditional. It's structural. Psychologists call this unconditional framing, and research shows it is one of the most powerful triggers for behavioral change. Not because it scares people, but because it removes the escape route. When we believe a problem only happens to careless people, we opt out of it mentally. We tell ourselves, that won't be me. I'm careful. I'm different. But when the evidence shows the problem is in the object, not the person, something shifts. Suddenly, it isn't about your driving skill. It isn't about your caution or your reflexes or how alert you were that morning. The steering column will enter your chest at 30 miles per hour regardless of who you are. Nader's book documented exactly this. Car by car, defect by defect. He focused heavily on the Chevrolet Corvair, a car with a suspension design that made it prone to rollovers. How it quietly changed the behavior impact. What General Motors did next is one of the most fascinating and darkest chapters in corporate psychology. Instead of addressing the safety issues, they hired private investigators to dig into Nader's personal life. They tried to find something, anything, to discredit him. They tapped his phone. They followed him. They reportedly sent women to try to entrap him. They found nothing, because there was nothing to find. And when Nader discovered he was being surveilled, he didn't go quiet. He went to Congress. The Senate hearing in 1966 became a turning point in American history. The president of General Motors sat before the Senate and admitted the company had investigated Nader privately. The room went silent. In trying to destroy one man's credibility, they had handed him the most credible moment of his entire career. Within months, the United States passed the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1966. For the first time ever, the federal government had the power to set safety standards for vehicles. Seatbelts, padded dashboards, safety glass, head restraints, collapsible steering columns, so they bend away from you instead of through you. All of it mandatory. A single man had taken on the most powerful industry in the country. The REASURNC nothing is wrong with you. Here's what I want you to take away from this, and it's quieter than the rest of the story. You and I live surrounded by systems that were once defended exactly the way the car industry defended itself. Systems built by people who believed in them. Systems that resisted change not out of cruelty, but out of comfort, investment, and fear. And here's the psychology underneath all of it. We don't resist change because we're weak. We resist it because our brains are wired to protect what is familiar over what is better. Familiarity registers as safety. Novelty registers as threat. Ralph Nader wasn't special because he was smarter. He was effective because he was willing to be uncomfortable, publicly, persistently, alone, for long enough that the discomfort became impossible to ignore. Most people who see something wrong stay quiet because they assume someone with more authority, more knowledge, more power is already handling it. Nader assumed the opposite. Administration estimates that seatbelts alone save over 14,000 lives every year in the United States. Every single one of those lives is connected in some invisible thread back to a 31-year-old lawyer who refused to look the other way. So the next time you click your seatbelt and it makes that small, satisfying sound, remember what it cost to get there. Not money, not engineering, but one person's willingness to say out loud what everyone else was quietly thinking and choosing to ignore. Sometimes it changes because one person asks the right question at the right time and refuses to stop asking. Here's what I want you to think about, and tell me in the comments below. Is there something in your everyday life that you've quietly accepted as normal that maybe shouldn't be? Because that's where the next Ralph Nader is hiding. Maybe in you. And if today's video made you think even a little, you have to watch the next one.